The honourable member from Bow River.
Thank you. After 9 years as NDP Liberal government, Canadians are being squeezed for every last penny, like Tammy in my riding. Families are paying hundreds every month on a tax plan that hasn't hit a single target. While Liberal ministers get chauffeured around town, they lecture Canadians that the planet will burn for driving to work or going to school, driving the kids to school. Will the Prime Minister quit exploiting families for trying to get by and cut the carbon tax catastrophe and vote for the common sense Conservative plan to help Canadians this summer by axing the tax?
The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, here are the facts. Albertans get the most in Canada carbon rebate, and there's a rural top-up that's going to double thanks to our budget. Mr. Speaker, guess what? Not only that, but when we had a minor increase in the price on pollution this year, guess who increased the price of fuel by 13 cents? The Premier of the province of Alberta, Danielle Smith, and guess what she did? No rebate, $0 back. The Canada carbon rebate puts more money in the pockets of Alberta.
No, it doesn't, or else how would it be profitable? Like, anyone should be able to tell that it doesn't make any sense.
Patrick. Mr. Speaker, the housing crisis is a source of intense stress for many people. There is a shortage of affordable houses and apartments. For years, Liberals and Conservatives have abandoned truly affordable housing. Experts tell us that federal buildings could alleviate the crisis by being converted into housing. It's a good idea, but people will have to actually be able to pay the rent. Can the Liberals guarantee that 100% of available federal land and buildings will be used for social and affordable housing? The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to thank my colleagues for their concern and their building of affordable housing. I've shared why we've created an acceleration fund for housing, which goes through, notably, an agreement with Quebec that is building 8,000 affordable housing units. We have the opportunity to use public land to create affordable housing. I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues to establish the details and to build a lot of housing in the future for our country.
The honourable member from Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, while a record number of families are turning to food banks, grocery CEOs have never been richer. The Liberals aren't cracking down on the corporate greed driving up food prices, and as for the Conservatives, they wouldn't dare touch the profits of their CEO donors. Canadians deserve better. The NDP is giving the Liberals a chance to put an end to corporate greed by making rich CEOs pay what they owe so that we can invest that money back into Canadians. Will the Liberals vote in favour of our motion to make rich grocery CEOs pay what they owe?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
I'd like to thank the colleague for the question. In fact, we all recognize in this country that, families are having a hard time when it comes to grocery, Mr. Speaker. That's why we've acted. In fact, with the Minister of Finance, we presented
stop the carbon tax for the summer.
Largest revamp of our competition law in the country. But guess what, Mr. Speaker? The Conservative voted against, Those are the ones who are standing and saying they want to help family. They voted against. Mr. Speaker, if they want to do something to help us, they should stand with us and ask Costco and Walmart to sign the Grocery Code of Conduct. That's the best way to bring fairness in this country. We'll keep pushing, and I hope they're going to join us in that endeavor, Mr. Speaker.
Good answer. After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, never before has so much been spent to achieve so little. Despite having doubled the national debt, today Statistics Canada confirmed that GDP per capita has fallen again for the 6th time in 7 quarters. Under this Prime Minister, Canadians have seen one of the steepest falls in the standard of living in our history. Why is this Prime Minister spending so much to make Canadians so poor?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives just can't resist talking Canada down. That's why we are not hearing from them.
Because we're in a horrible state economically.
4 months in a row being within the Bank of Canada's target range, and in April, the lowest it has been in 3 years, at 2.7%. That is why we are not hearing from them that last year Canada attracted the most foreign direct investment per capita in the entire G7. The other thing we're not hearing from them is all the programs they're going to cut, starting with the National School Food Program.
The honourable member from Charleswood St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
The fact of the matter is that Canadian standard of living is declining. In the United States, GDP per capita has grown more than 8% since 2019. Right. Our economy is now underperforming the United States by the widest margin since 1965. Right. Well, under this Prime Minister, his government has grown morbidly obese. More Canadians are visiting food banks than ever before. This is economic malpractice. Why is the Prime Minister spending so much to make Canadians so poor?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, yet again, these Conservatives are relentlessly talking Canada down and concealing their austerity agenda. The reality is Canada has added 1.3 million more jobs than we had before the pandemic. The Canadian economy is 104% the size it was before the pandemic. The rate of growth second in the G7, only to the United States. And, Mr. Speaker, we have preserved our AAA credit rating with a stable outlook.
The honourable member from Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes.
Speaker, the latest number from Stats Canada shows that under this Liberal government, Canadians have seen one of the steepest falls in living standards in our country's history. This means our quality of life has now dropped to the same level it was 8 years ago. The employment rate is up from last year. After 9 years of this Liberal government, Canadians are worse off. They're working twice as hard to take in half as much. In fact, Canada's economy has stagnated, and Liberal policy is to blame. So why is the Prime Minister spending so much to make Canadians so poor?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, it's amazing to hear the Conservative talking down Canadians, Canada, and our prospect, Mr. Speaker. Around the world, Mr. Speaker, people are talking about Canada. You know what?
Yeah, in a horrible light.
We have received the largest level of investment, Mr. Speaker, in our economy. You know what? Because we have the best workers in the world, Mr. Speaker.
Right.
Because we have renewable energy. Because we have trade agreement with our G7 partners, Mr. Speaker. Right. Because we know what to make things in this country, Mr. Speaker. And while they talk down Canada on this side of the House, we will keep pumping up Canada. We'll keep being proud for this country, and we'll bring jobs in this country.
The honourable member from Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes.
Speaker, the Liberals are ruining the economy. Production of made-in-Canada goods and services has declined for the fourth straight quarter, the latest drop by 0.7% in the first 3 months of this year. Canada remains last of 37 market-based countries that haven't recovered from before the pandemic. In fact, Canada underperforms the American economy by the widest margin since 1965. And sadly, Canada's economy continues to stagnate under this Prime Minister's uncontrolled spending and punishing taxes. So why is the Prime Minister spending so much to make Canadians so poor?
The Honourable Minister for International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I would like the Honourable Member to talk to the hundreds upon hundreds of Canadian companies who have come with me to many markets around the world where we have excellent trade agreements, where they are taking their services, they are taking their goods, they are taking their innovations, they are taking their creations, and they are selling. They are selling Canada around the world. And you know what they're doing in doing that? They're creating jobs. They're creating jobs from coast to coast to coast. We need to keep talking up the Canadian economy and Canadian businesses, and we're doing this on this side of the House, and I want to know why you're not.
I'm certain the Honourable Minister.
Things are getting pretty heated.
But I would encourage all members. I would encourage all members, please, to ensure that the questions and answers are directed through the Speaker.
Tomorrow, the Auditor General will table her report on McKinsey. Now, the Liberals will try to hide their preferential treatment of McKinsey, but the procurement watchdog already said that this government creates criteria specifically designed for McKinsey. The Minister of Procurement also signed a $5.7 million sole source contract, despite her officials asking her not to, for McKinsey. Wow. At a time where Canadians can't even take a summer summer vacation. Why is its government so hell-bent on giving $116 million to McKinsey?
Money laundering.
For les travaux publics et approvisionnement Canada.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Très enchanté de...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I look forward to answering this question. My colleague knows full well that the Auditor General's work is very important, but also very appreciated by the Canadian government. We look forward to hearing their report tomorrow. We know that their report will continue to help us so we can go even further in the important work that we must all do to make sure that public services are delivered in a good and opportune way. And for the dental care system that is working very well, especially in Quebec.
The Honourable Member from Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Corruption, abuse, resignations, multiple investigations, and at least $150 million tax dollars illegally given out by Liberal insiders to other Liberal insiders and to themselves. That's Sustainable Development Technologies Canada after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government and that Prime Minister that's just not worth the cost. The Auditor General is set to release a damning report on SDTC tomorrow. So will the Prime Minister shut down the $1 billion slush fund? Will he commit to get Canadians their money back? And will he guarantee Canadians that none of these corrupt executives will get $1 of severance?
Not $1.
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. In fact, as you well know, Mr. Speaker, from the moment we received allegation, we started an investigation, Mr. Speaker, in order to make sure that we would uncover the truth and we would restore governance. We suspended funding of the organization. We now got a report. The chairwoman resigned. The CEO of the organization resigned, Mr. Speaker. We welcome the findings of the Auditor General. We proactively work with the Auditor General. And one thing I can reassure all Canadians, we will restore governance, restore funding for this organization that is helping thousands of Canadians' companies in this country.